all you heard, one of them had to see both their parents get decapitated. Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you have been here from the beginning or if you already subscribed to me, and welcome to all my new subscribers. Oh my lord, there is a bug. There's a bug. My name is Jamin Anderson. In today's video, I am going to be speaking about my experience living through war. And although this happened a while ago, it's still very triggering. I wanted to share this with you guys and tie it into something that I hope will be motivational or inspirational to someone listening out there. So I wrote some notes because my mom had to sort of remind me of some things that happened. So I was born in the US, and when I was about less than a year old, my mom had to study, and so my grandma actually took care of me. When my mom had to work, my grandma took me from the States to go and live in Liberia because that's where she was originally from. A few months after she took me back, war actually broke out in Liberia, massive civil war. I believe it was the civil war with Charles Taylor and President Doe. So President Doe was the president at the time. There was a coup d'etat and Charles Taylor was trying to basically take the presidency by force, which he did. But during that time, the American citizens living in Liberia would go to the American embassy and they would be airlifted. So my grandma and I went to the American embassy and we were airlifted. As I was a minor, I couldn't travel by myself. So that was my first experience of war. So my mom had like come back to Ivory Coast. We were in Ivory Coast because that's where my father was. And my grandpa came to drop me off to her from the States. We stayed in Ivory Coast for a little while and then we went to Liberia. When we went back to Liberia, we lived for a very long time. I think until I was, I want to say 8 or 9. And then war broke out. So this was the civil war, which again was a coup in Liberia to remove Charles Taylor as president. Liberia has a very interesting history. From what I know, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Liberia's history is filled with a lot of bloodshed and strife and war because Liberia was not a country before the colonizers came or before people decided to draw borders. It was just land, and there were indigenous people living on that land, and those indigenous people formed tribes, and some of those tribes are found all over West Africa, which goes to show you that there were no divides. So you can find some tribes from Liberia and Ivory Coast and Guinea and all the neighboring countries. Before slavery was abolished, some slave owners freed their slaves and sent them to Africa. They ended up settling in Liberia, and those people who came made it a point to separate themselves from the indigenous people for many reasons that they felt were good at the time. Decided to impose their ways on the indigenous people. This obviously caused some strife and tension, to put it mildly, in the future, hence the civil wars. For many years there had been the ancestors of slaves as presidents in Liberia and in high positions of power, and the indigenous people did not have that privilege. Unsurprisingly, there was tension. A lot of this tension was displayed in the civil wars that happened leading up to the one that I'm going to talk about now. So Charles Taylor is a descendant of slaves. People weren't happy with that. So they weren't happy with the way the country was being run. They weren't happy with the power structures. They just weren't happy. They were very discontent. So war came to Liberia, and I was quite young during this time. Like I said, I was 8 or 9. All I knew was that I live here. This is a beautiful place. I lived next to the beach. My life was very normal. I mean, I roller skated, I played with my friends, I went to school, I had play dates. You know, it was quite normal. It's nothing like the Liberia that I went to last, which the last time I was in Liberia was 2016. But during that time, life was very happy. I remember hearing in the months leading up to the war, Monrovia, which is the city, the capital city, and the city that I was living in at that time. Just like little snippets on the radio. But it didn't really, I mean, it registered to me that something abnormal was happening. I could see that the adults around me were visibly like more tense than they normally were. But I continued to live life. I continued to go to school every day. I continued to go to my grandparents' house after school. That's what I would mainly do. I would come home after school, go to their house, eat, do my homework, and then go home in the evening, hang out with my mom. She worked for her dad in his clinic. Life was good. Life was normal. That was normal for me. And I remember one day my mom sitting me down and telling me, I had a dream, Jamin, that war came to Monrovia and I want you to go to the nun's house. You know, I want you to go to the nun's house when you hear shooting. And I at the time thought, okay, well, why are you stressing me going to the nun's house? Everything is fine right now. But I remembered what she said nonetheless, and I hadn't seen guns and I hadn't heard guns in real life. I'd heard them like in TV shows and like on the radio and stuff, but never in real life. So I remember this day very, very clearly. I went to school. My school was called Convent Catholic School, and everything was fine. And I remember it was right before lunch and the shooting started, and all you heard, they were far off, but you would hear it and then there would be like complete silence, and then you would hear it again, and then everyone just started screaming. Like literally all hell broke loose. And I, instead of heading towards the exit, went further into the school to the nun's house, which my mom had told me to do. And I waited there until she came, and the nuns were very lovely to me. My mom came and she was like frantic and she hugged me and she was like, we need to get out of here. And I remember she tried to hail a cab, and normally I think a normal journey from like my school to the house used to be like 10 Liberian dollars, which I'm not sure what that is in US dollars. But she stopped the cab and the cab was charging her something like 60 American dollars. I think we got that cab. We got the cab, we paid, and we came home. And my mom, it's funny because before all of this happened, I remember her saying we were going to go away. And she was like, we're gonna go away soon and we're never gonna come back. And I remember she would say that like on the porch when she was cooking. This is way before rebels were close to Monrovia or anything, but every day she would be cooking, she would tell me. And I would be like, I don't know where you're getting these funds from, but okay, we're gonna go somewhere, just us two, and we're never gonna come back. So this day, I remember us going to my grandparents' house first. My father wanted to take me, and then my mom was gonna go to England, but things didn't happen that way. Words were exchanged, and my mom took me. She had already packed our stuff, and she quickly took our suitcases, put us in the car, and we drove to the American Embassy. The way the American Embassy works is if you are a minor, I'm not sure if it still works this way now, but at that time, if you were a minor, you had to be accompanied by an adult. So my mom is a British citizen, so we could have gone either way. We decided to go to the US because that's where my mom's family was. So we went to the embassy, and I remember there were so many people outside the American Embassy. The way war works, which today we hear about Syria on the news, and there are many other nations who've been through war, and my heart honestly breaks every time I hear about war, because there was a way out for me. There wasn't a way out for the people who didn't have other passports. So there were mothers outside the American Embassy who were indigenous Liberians with their babies, and they couldn't get through. After I left, the death toll was a lot. and the population of Liberia was already quite low. It was like 3 point something million. You just look at life differently. A few days later, we were on a ship to the neighboring country, which was Ivory Coast. And from Ivory Coast, my mom and I got a ticket to come to America, and we stopped over in Belgium, and later the States. That was our final destination. Later on, I learned that I lost several classmates that were very close to me. One of them had to see both their parents get decapitated. Yeah, I lost a lot of classmates that were my friends. So the purpose of this video was firstly to let you guys get to know me a little bit more, and also let you guys see life is not something that's promised to anyone. It's not something that should be taken for granted. Your life can be so normal 1 minute and then just complete chaos the next. Knowing that, armed with that information, I think it's so important. Stop making excuses for why you can't do something. So I hope that helps someone out there. If you guys were interested in this story or want to know more about me, please do leave that in the comments. Trust me, there's so many other things I would love to share with you guys. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Oh, since you're here and you've watched this far, you might as well hit the subscribe button. I'll just give you some time. I'll just wait here patiently. And while you're there, hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video, because why would you want to miss that? See you guys in the next video. Bye.